Hello.
Hi, guys.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back.
How are you?
This is great. Good to see you again, everybody. Hi, Shoshana, Jackie, Yaffa.
Hello. I'm so excited. My children are tucked away to bed tonight, so I think we're going to be okay.
With the subject that we have at hand, it might be just a good idea.
The girls are around, so I quickly scurried them off. Like, please go upstairs and stand by their doors like that they shouldn't wake up.
So let's welcome our viewers. Ready?
Death is so much easier to deal with than dating, right?
Especially with a teenage daughter around.
That's what I mean, in front of kids.
Mm-hmm. So let's welcome everybody. Hello, everybody out there. Welcome to the second episode of Souled Live and Real. My name is Adina Silverman. I'm the co-founder of Yehudi in Florida and senior educator for Partners in Torah. Jackie, introduce yourself.
Hi, I am Jackie Glazer, and I am the Director of Leadership for All of Me, as well as a life coach and former Today Show psychologist in Australia.
That's just the coolest, Jackie. That's just the coolest.
Yep, go ahead.
Jackie.
Go ahead, Yaffa, introduce yourself.
Do you guys hear me?
Now we do. Go introduce yourself.
Oh, okay. Hi, I am Yaffa Palti. I am a motivational speaker, relationships coach, and it's really hard to introduce myself right after Jackie, but hi.
Yaffa. I'm Shoshana Kay, everybody. Hello. I am Regional Director of More Philadelphia and National Program Director for My Gift of Mikveh, which is the education division of Mikveh USA. And I actually put on summer clothes for you this evening. Jackie, you're wearing leather.
Yeah, I was dressing for like the East Coast.
It's so funny. I'm also
in Florida. It's like, okay, you know what? I'm going to do the down south thing.
Totally. I purposely put on black. I'm like, I don't want to make it look like I'm in Miami.
That's hilarious. We can like never accept like where we're at and that it's okay. You know, I've got to always somehow change myself. It's hysterical.
I accept where I'm at. I put the palm trees over here, and I'm very grateful that I live in a place where people spend thousands of dollars to come and visit exactly this time of year, and I get to walk out my front door. And that is my goal. My life goal for the next month is just to feel like a tourist in my own hometown. Let's get started with our subject, ladies. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Make yourself comfortable. Okay. Tonight's subject is love and dating, which is a hot topic. No matter who it is, no matter what age, no matter what your background is, somehow this is just something that's always on our mind. So I want to start out with an interesting thing. In the early hours of April 15th, 1912, an event took place that will never be forgotten in American history. You recall? A ship sunk in the North Atlantic, taking over 1,500 of her passengers. In 1997, I found myself in the back of a movie theater watching the movie Titanic, if you recall, which ended up being, I believe it is ranked at number 3 in terms of top grossing films, bringing in a whopping, I think, over $2 billion. Now, why was I crying deliriously in the back of the movie theater with all of my teenage friends? Not because 1,500 people lost their lives on that day. I was crying because Jack and Rose won't be together forever. And the truth is, this is a common theme within all of the movies that we watch. It's the number 1 best-selling book genre. It's romance novels. Also brings in a whopping $1.4 billion a year. Ladies, guess what percentage of the music that we listen to is themed with what we call love, or they call reproductive themes? Take a guess.
50%?
I would say 98.
What did you say, 98? So the top theme that we sing about is about loss of love. And the second one is about desire when you're in love. So we are so obsessed with this that we can't stop thinking about it. We can't stop reading about it. We can't stop watching it. We can't stop listening about it. We are consumed in our culture with this particular subject. And if you're going to tell me that the reason why it's because we get a lot of desire out of it, there's a lot of things that I personally think are very desirable. Sushi, a glass of wine, which I forgot to bring to the show. These are things that I find to be very close. Jackie's got her wine, close and dear to my heart. But if I sang a song about sushi or the steak that I ate last night, somehow it probably wouldn't make it to the top of the charts. It just doesn't work, right? Sizzle steak on the grill, it doesn't work. What is it about this subject that we are so incredibly obsessed with? to the point that we consume and we are never, ever satisfied. Furthermore, okay, follow my lead, follow my train of thought. Over 2 million people get married every year in America, right? He buys the ring.
2 million?
Yes. They go through all the wedding plans. They stand before 200 people and God himself stating their commitment to each other until death do us part, right? But in reality, over 50% of them, it's usually until finances do us part, or Sandra, the secretary, or your lack of communicating anything at all. And that's because of your mother, right? Somehow it doesn't necessarily last. So now we see something interesting. It's this paradox. In our culture, we are consuming it by the bucket load, but somehow in reality, we're not actually achieving success in this area. So I want to pose a question to you. We're going to start off with Jackie. Jackie, ready?
No big deal. Yeah.
I want to pose a question to you. Why are we obsessed with love? So much so, and there's no other subject. Probably this is a cross-cultural phenomenon as well. There's no other subject that we are more obsessed with, yet there's no other subject that we suffer as much in when it comes to love. Why are we existing in this phenomenon? Go.
Well, it's kind of Kabbalistic-y, my initial reaction, which is that on a subconscious level, there's a deep desire for a oneness, for connection, oneness, unification. And it's just programmed in all humans to want this deep, deep connection of the most intimate kind, because that taps us into a sense of oneness. And I know we're going to do intimacy another episode, but the idea, you can't really separate it if you're asking this question, that like, what is it that we're yearning for? I think we're yearning to be known, to be seen, and intimacy is into me see, right? Into me see, and that to create that connection is that sense of oneness that I think that a lot of people seek out in many different ways, because it's just part of the fabric of what it means to be a human and to be connecting spiritually and to reflect the oneness of the reality of the world, the reality of a higher power. And to be connected beyond ourselves is the feeling that we get when we're in love. It feels worldly, right? So I think that it's the best feeling in the world when you have it. And people want this feeling. It's just programmed inside of us. And it's a spiritual feeling from the soul if we allow ourselves to tap in to the real source of it.
So interesting.
That's my 2 cents.
Yafa, what do you think?
Well, I think that people want to be a part of something bigger than just themselves, because this really is why we're here in this world. And whether it's conscious or subconscious, we know that when we just live for ourselves, we don't reach that level of satisfaction. And when you enter into a committed relationship, you're living for something that's much bigger than just you. And I think that on a very deep level, this is what many people want.
So I'll challenge you with that, because I know that the big key word here is the L word, right? The love word. That 4-letter word that everybody talks about that they're yearning for. But truth be told, like, we're really, like, we experience love before we get married. My parents loved me. Someone's dog might love them. They have friends that love them. We are surrounded often with love. What are we searching for? What are we yearning for? So, Jackie, I'm hearing you saying that there's like a deeper spiritual need, a oneness that we're trying to achieve, which is different than love.
Oh, that's interesting. I guess so, but I think love is the vehicle that brings us to that place.
But I think we need to define love. Don't you think we need to define love before we talk about it?
That's what I'd like to do. Obviously, because if we're going to go by just the definition of our day, right, then it's like I say that I love chicken, right? Mm-hmm. Or I love steak. But truth is, if I really love steak, then I wouldn't have slaughtered it, put it on my plate, and slathered some type of non-dairy butter on top of it and ate it for dinner. I would have tied a bow around her neck, called her Bessie the cow, and put her in my backyard. That's love. So what is love? In truth, not based on what the culture is trying to feed us. Shoshana.
Oh, I'm so happy you asked me that, Adina, because I have the perfect answer. I was sitting here thinking like, oh no, she's going to ask me this and I'm not going to have like just the right answer. Thank you, Adina. This really is. Okay, here we go. Ahava, right? It's not just the creams from Israel. It's not just the moisturizer. Ahava is what we understand in Hebrew as the word love. But how do we come to really understand what love is? There's no real definition for love. The understanding of love is from the Aramaic word love, which means to give. Real love. If the reason why it's not just enough for me to love my mother, love my dog, love Bessie the cow, is because in these relationships, as much as I have an opportunity to give, the giving has to be on an elevated level, a reciprocity of connection. Because really, like each and every one of us, we come into this world, and like our main goal, I think so, is to do what we're supposed to be doing. We come here on a mission, and what's this mission? Oh, Jackie, I have to say something. I have to say. No, I have to. Okay, somebody just posted. This is live and real. I have to say something. Jackie just posted on the private chat. Jackie, forgive me. You can do the same thing to me one day. But Jackie just posted on the private chat that my dog is snoring. Can anyone hear it? We totally can't hear it, so don't worry about it. But that was like the funniest thing I've ever heard of in my life. That was hysterical. I'm on the chat. Anyways, about love. Okay, we come into this world, and what's
I love my dog.
Our ultimate purpose is to be the best version of ourselves that we can be. And what is that version? To mirror God, essentially. And what's God doing every single day? He's giving, he's providing pleasure. Yes, we'll speak about why bad things happen to good people at a different time and suffering and all these things. But ultimately, that's what God is doing. So Adina, for us, love, real love is when I'm giving to another person in a way that keeps me connected, so that I feel I'm almost like godlike. It's something that is almost, it's an existential feeling. It's hard to even put your fingers on it. Those butterflies you feel, that excitement, that I don't want to eat anything, that, where does that come from? Is that love, or is that our perception of what we think we're about to enter into? I don't know if this.
Maybe I'll build on that. So if I were going to put in my two hands the difference between the cultural definition of love today and the Jewish definition of love, the cultural definition is, I like the way this person makes me feel when I'm around them. And the Jewish definition is, I choose to give to this person and give them pleasure and make them feel good when they are around me.
Exactly. So Adina, you know, when you think about it, and when I'm counseling our students, our college students, young couples, whatever it is, they say, even my married couple, if he only did this, I would love him so much more. If he only gave me more attention, I would love him so much more. If he only spent more time with me, if he only communicated with me better. And what is so interesting in the Jewish concept of love is that it's not true. I'm not going to be more in love with you when you give to me more. I'm going to be more in love with you when I give to you more. That's why mothers love their babies so much, because we're constantly giving and giving and giving, and this child is doing nothing but eating dirty diapers and waking us up. But that's exactly what it is. The more I give to you, the more I'm going to be opened up to being in love with you. So I'm happy you brought that up, Adina.
It's interesting that you say that, because we're painting this beautiful picture of love, but now I think it's time to get real. So truth is, if assuming that the concept of dating is the catalyst for achieving or feeling true love, so then let's talk about our current dating system. Let's be real.
I love it.
So I'm going to pull up a quick clip for you guys to look at, and then I want to talk about that right afterwards.
Well, hello, madame. My name is Frederick. I am sorry to bother you on this elegant day, but I couldn't help but notice you walking across the quarry. You are the most beautiful woman I've ever laid eyes on. It would be my honor, my pleasure, to have your hand for some tea.
100 years later.
Yo! What's your snap? What's your snap?
Okay.
That's so sad, but it's so real.
So sad, it's so real. What we found is that something has shifted. I think it used to be that there was always a discrepancy between men and women in terms of how we related to each other through the courting process. And women were like held themselves to a certain standard, and men were there. And men had to raise their standard in order to earn the right to be able to date a girl. And today there's still a discrepancy, but I think, if I'm not mistaken, we're kind of lowering our standards in order to be able to be on the same level of guys. Maybe I'm being very I'm stereotyping too much, but do you guys agree with me? And I want to talk for a minute. If I could call on Jackie a little bit. Tell me about ghosting and this current issue of hookup culture. What do we do with it? Why does it exist?
So, like, I just think that it really is a different, deeper identification and a lack of self-worth and a lack of self-respect, because if I see myself as a refined individual with a potential to be, righteous and, holy, and I come from the soul, and we call this souled, live and real. Like if I have a soul and that I have an elevated higher self, then I'm not going to be okay with that. I'm not going to tolerate it. But I feel that what's happened in this society, just from my observation, is that we've stopped identifying with our soul. I know that I'm allowed to speak like this, right? Like we're on a soul thing called souls. It's like we've stopped identifying with our soul. We've forgotten, I think, our worth. And because of that, we're treating each other like dirt. We're treating ourselves like dirt. I mean, the whole idea from the Torah perspective is the Talmud says we don't see things the way they are. We see things the way we are. So literally what was created outside of ourselves is a reflection of what is within ourselves. So if I don't really value myself and I don't see myself as an elevated person or a soul potential to live from a soul place, then okay, I don't care about myself. I don't care about you. I can ghost you. I can organize a whole date and then just disappear and not speak to you. I can just hook up because I like your body and it feels good, as opposed to that's satisfying my desire rather than actually giving to you, as Shoshana was saying before. I don't have to. It's just a whole different operating system. And I think a degraded version of a man is to be like a hunter. And the degraded version of a woman, this is going to sound really harsh, but I feel like we can just be open and real, because like we've all done this, like I've done this, growing up, that the degraded version of a woman is to be dressing up like prey, like to want the attention, right? So you have a hunter hunting. And when we go into, let's be honest, if we ever go into clubs and whatever, it has that vibe. And so we get a choice. Do I want to be identifying with my lower self, which is more body? And that's what I feel the hookup culture is totally based on. I just want to hook up with you because it feels good to me, and I don't care about you because really deep down, I don't really care about me. I just want to do what feels good in the moment. Thanks, Coca-Cola. Like as in the phrase. But like I think it's time to, when you say what do we do about that, Adina, I think it's time to start reevaluating the fact that we all have souls and that we actually have a lot more potential, and to maybe even suggest that women are in a position where we don't have to tolerate it.
Shoshana, what do you think? I know, I saw you bursting. You're like, I need to say something. You're on mute, Shoshana. Unmute yourself. I saw you bursting.
This subject is so painful to me. Twice a year for the last 3 years, I've traveled to Emory specifically, Emory University, because there is such an issue with the hookup culture. And we've had such conversations, and I go and speak specifically to the sororities, and we spend hours discussing these things and what can we do differently. And Rabbi Fleschel, the Maor rabbi at Emory, even started a hashtag date before touching or whatever after one of our years. And the girls were so excited about it the first time I went to go speak to them. But ultimately, they said, like, what are we going to do? We can't change the culture. What are we going to do? If we don't, we're going to be totally socially isolated if we're not part of it. And it's not that I don't care about myself. It's because I care about myself. And therefore, I want to hook up with someone. I want to feel good. How else am I going to get a guy? Mm. And you know what? Not only that, what's the craziest thing? And it was so painful to me. They told me that if after 2 times that you hook up with a guy that you don't do what you need to do, they're like, stop wasting my time. What's your problem? Why are you taking so long? And it's ingrained in these girls. So year after year, this past year, the seniors graduated, but I had from freshman to senior with the specific group of girls. And what was so important, you don't have to buy into the culture. You don't have to. But so often what ends up happening, Adina, from my experience, especially in colleges, it's so ingrained at this point. And what's so fascinating is when I discuss with them exactly what you said, Jackie. Girls, tell me, what do you wear when you go out? And they're like, what do you mean what do we wear? We wear like short shorts, or we wear nothing basically. Like, oh, and what are the guys wearing? And they're like, oh, they're wearing sweats, maybe jeans with a lot of holes in them. Like this doesn't make any sense. And I always speak to them, it's so interesting. Look at the way that you're hooking up. When was the last time? See, there's a juxtaposition between Judaism's view of dating and maybe the world's view of dating. Judaism, the way we date in Judaism is it first goes we connect on an intellectual level. And then if the intellectual level's there, we go to the emotional level. And if the emotional level's there, we go to the physical level. And at each stage, it gets harder to have some type of regular sense, some clarity that, is this person right for me or not? Forget marriage. Just even, is this person have boyfriend potential? But with these, a lot of what's happening in society today, it's going from the physical. Then, if it works physically, maybe we'll connect emotionally. And then afterwards, maybe we'll connect intellectually. But at each stage, it's so hard to assess. Like, when was the last time, I always say to the girls, when is the last time some guy, you walked into a bar and they were like, you saw some guy and they're like, whoa, man, look at that hot personality over there. Like, you just don't see men who are it's so based on the physical of women. At what point do we get to say, no more, I'm more than this? I am not about just what is my external. There's a whole world to me internally.
Well, I'll stop you right there, because I want to address a particular question. Yaf, I'm going to ask you about this question because I have a feeling you have something on your mind about this. One of the things that I find to be such an interesting thing to hear about when I speak to students is that the very last word that you can ever bring up on a date with a guy for at least a year is the M word. Like, if you bring up marriage too early in the relationship, it's sayonara. I'm out of here. And I find it to be an interesting thing. I understand that marriage is a scary word. The question is why? If dating, nobody ever wants to date and then enjoy the experience and then be dumped or to dump someone else. If the dating experience should be ideally involving maximum clarity, minimum heartbreak, I think that's a good equation. Do you agree with me? Maximum clarity, minimum heartbreak. So that you can get to the point where you feel long-lasting love. We talked about the fact that Judaism says that love is really oneness. It's that, like, intertwining of two people to the point that I look at you as if you are an extension of myself. And that's why I would never hurt you, because hurting you would be hurting myself. That oneness is the deepest type of level that you can ever experience. So then why are we so afraid? How do we get to the point where we become so afraid of the M word? Yafa, what do you think?
Well, first of all, just to connect the topic from before to this topic, I'm wondering if it's a little bit deeper than just how we feel about ourselves or not feel about ourselves. I wonder if it's a general ideology that we live with in our culture today, where it is a culture of instant gratification as opposed to a culture of long-term pleasure. You know, we really live our lives in so many ways. So many of the choices that we make are about the here and now, are about what feels good to me in this moment. Our feelings are more important than anything else. It's all about what feels good right now. And because of that, we don't like to think long term. So I think that's part of the hookup culture. I think that's part of the fear of marriage, that to have this long-term commitment, you know, so we have like this fear of attachment to one person forever, for the rest of my life. I can't even commit to what I want to eat for dinner tonight, right? These commitments are petrifying for people in our society today, because we're in such a quick, you don't go on Instagram for 24 hours and you miss everybody's stories. It's gone. It's over, right? The fast pace of our society today. So people are very afraid of long-term anything, because long-term is just so scary and seems so forever, right? So I think that a lot of this comes from fear of attachment. There's fear of responsibility. Hookup culture is so easy. There's no emotional commitment. There's no responsibility in the relationship. You don't owe anyone anything. You don't have to work hard. It's so easy, right? So all of these reasons, of course, there's fear of the unknown. There's fear of saying goodbye to your old life and starting a new life. And I'm just going to throw in a personal story, a personal example. When I was dating my husband, okay, now we come from two very, very different cultures. I am American, hardcore Ashkenazi, okay, from all the way back. My husband is Mexican, Sephardic, and we had just had so many things that were like, we're just completely opposite in so many ways. Now, people like to say opposites attract. It's a very popular expression, but it's not really true. That works for batteries, not for people, okay? So there were so many things that when we were dating, I was so scared to commit. to this relationship. We went out a couple of times. He was just in town visiting. I grew up in New York. He was just visiting. He was only there for less than 2 weeks, and so people were setting us up. And so we went out a couple of times, and then he had to go back to Mexico. And it was like, I didn't have a reason not to continue dating him. So I continued, and he came back to New York. It was like Pesach time, whatever, without all the details. But as we were dating, he knew right away he wanted to marry me. But for me, it took me such a long time intellectually. I said, I know this is exactly what I've been praying for. He's the guy that I have been asking God for every day. He's the guy that on paper was exactly what I needed. But I was so afraid to commit emotionally. I was so afraid to allow myself to marry him, because I knew that I was going to have to make so many changes in my life. I was never going to live in New York again. There's going to be Spanish somewhere in my future. That came true. Okay. I was in
Mexico.
Customs. Well, we moved to Mexico.
Yeah.
I was in Mexico for 11 years. I knew I was going to have to change all my customs that I grew up with. Everything, every single thing. I don't have anything left from my childhood at all, except eating ketchup with spaghetti. Like that I still do. In Mexico, they don't do that.
It's very interesting that you're mentioning how like there's this fear of commitment, that till death do us part. That till death do us part. I say we should check the system in many ways. Like, why do we need this oneness? You know, in pagan tradition, marriages, it lasts a day and a year and a day. That's it. And they have this hand fasting ceremony. I think it's quite interesting to study. And it's nice because it's kind of like an internship. Try it out. And if you don't like it, it doesn't work. This like all or nothing mentality seems extreme. I'm going to challenge you. Where did it come from? Why do we actually subscribe to it? And if it's 50% of people who are getting divorced, maybe it's not a system that we should be subscribing to. And I'm going to call on you, Jackie, in a second, but I will tell you that if you're tuning in right now, do not sign off, because then you're going to sign off saying Adina Stillerman said we should check the marriage thing and not do it. So you have to stay till the end of the program in order to be able to get to the truth of it. But Jackie, I'm going to call on you, but I want to see if you can also weave in a question that came in from our Facebook Live, which I think is connected to this. The question came in from Shama from Brooklyn. She said, how long does it generally take to fall in love or to start to love another person, assuming that it might be before or after marriage? Where does that love fit in? So if you can't fit into your answer, don't worry about it. You're fine. But answer my question in terms of why we subscribe to this till death do us part mentality.
So what I think is misunderstood about marriage is that it's really a system to actualize your potential. And when you look at it that way, that I marry someone, my soulmate, not just to share an amazing life with them, which of course we all hope to do, and you should like your husband or spouse or whatever, and have fun with them and think they're gorgeous, and everything should be aligned, which we'll go to another question in a minute about how to spot the right one. But really the commitment, which is what we're scared of, is like the container that carries us through our whole lifetime of actualizing our potential, and me helping my partner actualize their potential by mirroring back to each other who we truly are, both our strengths and our challenges. And I think if you subscribe to that idea of marriage, so then commitment is not scary. You need commitment. Without the commitment, there's no container. There's nothing holding you in your growth. And if you take the Jewish view that marriage is really the whole purpose of marriage is to actualize our potential and to become our greatest version of ourselves this lifetime, it seems completely different. It feels different. And to weave in Erin's question from Brooklyn, I don't think you ever get to a place where like, now I love this person. Just my own personal experience is it's a constant deepening of love. The more you give and the more you give and the more you give, the more you love. That's why there's an idea that parents love their children more than the children love their parents, because the parents have given everything to that child. They've invested everything. So, I mean, children love their parents, but it's a different type of love for that reason. And I think that it's interesting, again, if I could just quickly share a little personal story. And this is crazy. And this does not happen to everyone. I don't know why it happened to me. But when I was dating my husband, I got married very, 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 very late in life. And I had a very long, painful dating experience, like years of dating single. And I met him. on our second date, we had
How long has it been? Which wedding anniversary are you celebrating this year?
second.
Second, right? Yes.
Must have the first, right?
Newlywed.
Yeah, we're newlyweds and we're totally in love and it's amazing and thank God. Oh, so grateful. Okay. So, but after our second date, we had a misunderstanding and we just didn't understand each other and we triggered each other. So I went home and I was so upset, which I never am after a second date, like that upset. I was really upset. I didn't know why, but it ended badly and I didn't know if I'd see him again. But it deeply disturbed me. I went to bed. I woke up in the middle of the night, not like in a dream, feeling this unconditional love from him that he was visiting me in my dream. And he grabbed my hand in my dream and he said, "Here we go, darling." And I woke up in the middle of the night and went, "Oh, he's my husband." Anyway, if anyone knows me, I'm so not the type to be like that at all. And I didn't tell anyone because I was totally embarrassed. Like, what was that?
It's
It gets worse. It gets worse. 2 months later, I had the guts to finally bring it up with him because we had an amazing discussion about what triggered each other. And then because of how we discussed what triggered each other, we continued, right? It was amazing. And then we continued dating. And 2 months later, I got the guts up because I knew it was really serious at that point to tell him about the dream. And I said, you're not going to believe it, honey, but like I had this dream about you on our second date. And I told him about it and he looked at me. He was like, I had the same dream the same night. And I was like, "You did not." Oh my gosh. And I was like freaking out. And he remembered exactly. He was at a friend's house. He was in Brooklyn and he knows where he was. He woke up also feeling this and I said, I had a feeling that I don't know. It was the bizarrest thing. So Erin, I don't know. I don't know when if you love someone, but I woke up in the middle of the night on the second date feeling this deep, deep love. I think it's not just this worldly. I think it's otherworldly, but I also think that it has to come from giving. And it's like many layers, deepening and deepening and deepening. So
hold on. Maybe address soulmates. Like there's also that concept. Like before Jackie was even born, it was clearly destined that her and her husband, 40 days. Like, should we discuss that? No.
We could definitely discuss it. I wanted to go ahead, Shoshana. You can describe it. It's a very
it doesn't have to do so much
married.
I just think that there is also a spiritual concept that we are destined to specific people, and that regardless of what we do in our lives, we are going to come into contact with that person. Should we want to marry them? Should we be able to be married to them? So Jackie, in your circumstance, you say you waited all this time, but look, it was decided that Poloni Bus Poloni, Jackie Bus, who your Hebrew name, whatever it is, 40 days before there's a heavenly call that comes out, and it's so remarkable to be able to see that between you and your husband. It's beautiful that was the manifestation of it.
I would actually talk about
when it comes to that idea, and a lot of people like to use the word bashert. Many of you may have heard this word before, right? But when it comes to this idea, it's so important to understand, though, what the balance is when it comes to soulmates, because in the Jewish perspective of marriage, we don't marry our soulmates. We really don't. What we do is we create our soulmates. We choose to marry the person that we're going to marry for whatever the reasons are. They're deeper reasons. They're not for superficial reasons, right? Deeper reasons are. They're people who maybe work for their character. Maybe they bring out the best in us. Maybe we realize that we could help them reach their potential. And we marry somebody for these deeper, really, more meaningful reasons. And then that person is the one who you turn into your soulmate. So I think the whole marriage is an idea of creating our soulmates. Like when I got married, he's in the other room. I didn't think he was my soulmate when we got married. I wasn't.
That's the norm.
Right, but Yafa, it can also be based on even previous lives. Different things, and this we can talk about a different topic, a different night, but we also marry certain people based on previous lives that we've had. Judaism believes in reincarnation, what's called Gilgulim. There's so many factors. What we understand as my soulmate doesn't necessarily mean what is spiritually what a soulmate is. What's called a zivug. A zivug, a Jewish concept of a zivug, of soulmates, beshert, your Rabbi's going to call it beshert, your beshert, is that the person who's going to help you become who you're supposed to be in this world.
The person who helps you become and the person who you help become as well.
Right.
It's partnership, and that's what a soulmate actually means. It's not just somebody who likes the same food as you and likes the same music as you, and your eyes, meet across the room and you're like, oh, he's my soulmate. That's not what a soulmate is. That's not love. That doesn't last. A soulmate is when you, as you were saying before, some of you, it's about the giving, but it's about helping each other actualize your potential, which Jackie said is what actual marriage is all about. So that's how you create your soulmate. Right. So it's important to have that balance in mind, even though maybe it was predestined but we still get to choose where we make those choices. Jackie, even though she had a dream and maybe it was predestined, she easily could have missed up on that opportunity had she been maybe focused on things that were less important than what she was focused on the depth of the relationship. Right. So these are important things. When we're focused on superficiality, we could pass up on an amazing opportunity to create our soulmate. But if we're focused on something that's much deeper and much more meaningful, then we can turn any opportunity into the creation of our soulmate.
We transitioned from, we had the discussion of our current dating culture. Now we're talking about this beautiful concept of marriage. And I'm wondering how we can create a bridge for our viewers. Create a bridge between where they are now and how they can somehow travel to that destination. I think we can start with some better dating habits. But before we do that, I want to go into one particular subject. We said earlier, what are we looking for in marriage in the first place? We found love. We had love. We were born into a loving family, quite possibly. We had friends that supported us. If we get married for companionship, maybe we can find companionship elsewhere. We don't get married for financial security anymore because women are working. What is it that we are doing? And I think the one thing that I can say that stands out for all of the things that we are looking for is the sexual domain, is when we're looking to complete ourselves in some way. So I think before we go into the creating a better dating culture for ourselves or for the world around us, let's discuss about sexuality in general and how it plays a role in ourselves, our relationship with ourselves. It is not an accident that the very first word that is used in the Torah for a sexual union is the word da'as. And anytime you have a word that means two different things, then the two are connected. What else does da'as mean? It means knowledge. What does a sexual connection and knowledge have to do with each other? That the Torah doesn't use two different words for it and uses the same word to be able to connect the two, because deeper in its spiritual core, there's something about knowledge that we're trying to tap into. What do you think, Jackie?
Knowledge. I think it's about knowing another, which is what I think. I mean, this is my sense, is that tapping into intimacy, into me, see, like truly knowing someone's essence.
Ooh, what did you just say? Into me, see?
Yeah, into me, see.
I've never heard that before. I like that.
Yeah.
It's interesting because knowledge is something that we don't look at as the glue in a relationship very much, especially not when it comes to a sexual connection. Like I'm waiting, our supermarket is Publix and you're waiting online, there's a whole slew of magazines that could tell me how to get a certain amount of pleasure in that particular dimension of our lives. Yet for some reason, there is very little satisfaction if you look at the research. So remember we said it's telling us how to do it, but we're not actually. So it must be something deeper than when it's telling us. So I'll just tell you a quick analogy. My house right now is under construction. It means I have no floors and I have no ceilings. Why?
Your living room looks pretty nice.
It looks stunning. I mean, it looks
I know. Thank you very much. The world of the virtual. I can make any living room. I should have built a palace, but I have no floors and I have no ceilings. Why? Because when you purchase a home, you're looking to have a deeper relationship with that home. So if my husband and I, let's say, went to the Cayman Islands for a few days, how much research am I going to do about the hotel room that we're going to stay in? Not much. I'm going to look online, look at the pictures of the rooms, look at the price that it costs, and that's it. If the price is good and it looks pretty, then I'll just stay in that room. That's all I need to know. If you're going to rent a house for a year, you'll do a little bit more research, right? You rent a house for a year, then you're going to look into this, maybe the neighbors, you're going to check, but are you going to go into the floors and into the ceilings and take off the walls and check out the history of the taxes and check out when the plumbing was updated? No, you're not, because truthfully, you're going to take care of it and you care to know as much as necessary whilst you are living in that home. It's not an investment. It's not an extension of yourself. But what happens when you purchase a home? When you purchase a home, which is what we were living in this rental home for many years, for 5 years, and now we just purchased it. Now what happens? Now we want to know what's going on behind those walls, because that home is an extension of us. Any crack that I saw before that I didn't care about, now I care about it, because in 10 years' time, I'm going to have to deal with that leak. Knowledge on the deepest level means that you look at the person as an extension of yourself. Can you imagine what a sexual connection between two loving people is like when you yearn and you desire to peel away the layers of the physical to understand how this person works emotionally, intellectually, spiritually, to see what it is that will make them happy? Can you imagine what it is like if two people are both focused on the knowledge of each other and they truly see each other as an extension of themselves? They would never hurt the other, because if I hurt the other, I have to fix the other. It's my responsibility. Looking at each other as you are my responsibility is what we call the sacredness of intimacy. The sacredness of intimacy means I truly want to know you in the deepest levels. And when the connection comes together, it's both head and body. It's both body and soul. And that's the definition of a soulmate. So now let's go back to dating for a minute.
Can I just add something, Adina?
Yeah.
When I was in Australia working as a psychologist, so one of my supervisor, who had asked me when I was like a young spring chicken to join the practice, she was a sex therapist also. Her specialty was sex therapy. And she said that she could tell within a 5 to 10 minute interaction between the couple in her clinic, in her room, talking, how they treated each other emotionally. She could predict with 99% accuracy what their sex life was, pretty much, like the dynamics that play out, because how they were with each other, how they were with each other as a whole being was obviously expressed in the bedroom. So they would come into her with some sexual issue that they want to solve, which they thought was just on the physical level or something in the bedroom. But she could tell that it, like exactly what you're saying, it was the whole person. It was the intimacy of the two together, the knowing, how did they know each other? How did they relate to each other? How did they treat each other was reflected. And so that's why I think that everything is so interconnected. And that's the tragedy of the hookup culture, is because it divorces that. And
yes. It's like there's a nourishing element of our sexual relationships. And then there's the physical pleasure, and we want to be able to divorce the two. Yeah. We want to be able to tap into that which gives us only physical pleasure, and we chuck that which is nourishing behind, which pretty much brings us to how we started the show, right, ladies? Right. We started the show, we're like, why are we craving this so much? Why are we dying for this so much? And why are we never satisfied? You know, Rabbi Akiva Tatz, anybody who's listening, and if you've read any of his books, then that's great. And if you haven't, get one immediately, because it's life-changing. But Rabbi Akiva Tatz gives such a beautiful analogy where he says that if a woman wants to feed her children healthy food, right? So she takes a slice of bread and she lathers it with honey, and then she feeds it to the child, assuming that that bread is nourishing. She gives the honey in order to like make it enticing for him to eat it, right? Now, a kid that gets smart, he looks to the right and he looks to the left, and then he takes the bread, and he knows that the only thing that really tastes good is the honey. So he licks the honey off the bread and he puts the bread in the garbage. And the reality is that only 5 minutes later, he's going to turn to his mother and say, I'm hungry again. And she's, confused. I just gave you food. Fine. And she does the same thing. And what does he do? He looks to the right, looks to the left, sees nobody's listening, licks the honey off the bread, and then throws the bread in the garbage. What do you need that for? The honey is the only thing that tastes good. Slowly but surely, you see a child that gets malnourished and is constantly turning back for more and is never satiated. That's how we are. We're constantly turning for more, never realizing that our sexual relationships are so much deeper than the skin. And if we tasted that just once, we would start to feel what it's like to be nourished. So I want to go back to dating, because this is a real world that we live in. How can we somehow curb or change or maybe modify our dating process today? How do we begin to heal from some of our previous experiences where we had a messy breakup where we weren't necessarily respected in this domain. So we're left with bruises. How do we heal and move forward? Any of you want to take this one? Show of hands. Yafa, go ahead, shoot.
Sure. Mostly because my wife is going in and out. So in the moment where my Wi-Fi is in, I'm going to take advantage. All right. So, I mean, of course, this is so multifaceted and everything is so individual. There are so many reasons people are hurt from their dating experiences. Everyone has their own issues that have happened. But I do think that generally speaking, and again, unless there was some severe trauma or whatever it is, those are different issues we're talking about within the normal range of human behavior and emotion. I think it's important to understand our intrinsic value, that no matter what happened, no matter how someone treated us, or no matter what mistakes we made, we can't define ourselves by those mistakes. We can't define ourselves by how naive we were. We learn new things each time. As we mature and as we go through life and as we experience new things, we keep learning more. And to say, if only I knew this back then, or how could I have made such a mistake? How did I not see the red flags? Forget about it. Right now, we have to understand our intrinsic value, who we are. We don't define ourselves by the mistakes we made. We don't live in guilt from it. And I think it's important to understand also to how to develop healthy relationships, to understand healthy relationships are supposed to be interdependent relationships as opposed to codependent. And we so often fall into codependency. And interdependence actually means that you rely on each other. You rely on each other for mutual support, but you still maintain your identity as a unique individual. In other words, your relationship is balanced. You know that you have their approval and you have their love, but your self-esteem doesn't depend on them. And if we could have this understanding that I am who I am, I know who I am, I am an individual, and this is with dating, and this is also within marriage. We two people who come together, but we have to remain our individuals. And again, we have each other's mutual love and support, but we remain our unique individuals. So I really think it all boils down to building our self-esteem and understanding why we are deserving of a better life and how we are responsible to give that to ourselves. It's no one else's responsibility. It's no one's responsibility. If we feel pain, if we feel love, if we feel trust, that's all us. It's no one else's responsibility to love us, or for us to feel loved, right? It's no one's responsibility for us to be happy. I personally have this often when I teach brides. I've been teaching brides for many years. I'm sure all of you teach brides. I think you all do, right? Or have taught. So I've been teaching brides for many years, and I've been teaching married women marriage courses, pre-marriage and post-marriage. And I hear all the time, I always ask them, why did you choose to marry him? Like, why are you marrying him? Or why did you marry him? And they're always, people always say, question. Well, what do you mean? I love him. Well, why did you choose to love him? You could have loved 300 other guys in your neighborhood. Like, why him? Or if he's someone from halfway across the world, like, why do you choose? And this question is always surprising to them because, again, this goes back to what love is. And it's important to understand this is a huge topic that could take us 10 hours, that love is not something, listen closely, everybody. Love is not something that we are a victim of. Love isn't something that just happens to us. Love is something we create. It's something we cultivate every single day. And so that's, first of all, having this understanding. But then finally, when they understand that idea, they answer me, what I love about him, the answer is almost 100% of the time, he makes me
happy.
Feel good.
Makes me feel good. He makes me happy. And then I say to them, so what's going to happen in 5 years, in 10 years when he no longer makes you happy? Because now you have a mortgage to pay and you have tuition to pay and you have other things and everyone's busy and stressed and he's not making you happy anymore. So what's going to happen? You're going to go to the next person who makes you happy? Right? We can't be dependent on someone else to make us happy. They could only make us happier. But we have to start off happy.
So let me ask you a question. Let me ask you, how do you know when the person is the right one when you are dating them? Because I don't know about you, but I thought there were like 5 or 6 guys that were the right one for me till it didn't work out. And I've heard many, many times from other people, my anecdotal evidence is there have been many times that women have thought like, I've met the guy of my dreams. How do you know who's really the right person for you?
My rabbi said 4 things once when I was dating. 4 things. And I was like, what? He said they should have good character. You should be attracted. There has to be a chemistry. You have the same values and that you communicate like you're on the same wavelength. You communicate well. And I was like, oh, I have not found.
Repeat that again, Jackie. That's good stuff. Repeat it again for people.
Good character. So how do you tell someone's good character? You watch how they treat people they don't want to impress, right? The garbage man, the waitress. Yeah. So good character. There's a chemistry. There's an attraction. There has to be a chemistry and an attraction. That there's, but you notice that's just one of the 4, right? It's not the whole thing. That there's that you have similar core values. That you're headed in the same direction, right? That you don't have radically different views on everything, because that opposites attract thing, as Yafa was saying earlier, isn't so easy. And the 4th one was communication, that you're on the same sort of communicate and get each other. You don't have a series of really bad miscommunications. And I was like, I haven't met anyone like that. I either am attracted to people, but I don't have the other stuff, or someone with good character, but I'm not attracted to them. He's like, well, of course, because if you found someone with all 4, you would have married them by now. And I'm like, oh, yeah. But can I just add one little piece, like literally 1 minute, about getting over the breakup thing? Because I think that's a really big, I know we don't have time, and it's a really big part. But like in Hebrew, the word why we know is lama, right? When we say, why me? Why did this happen to me? Especially when we're in heartache. Like, why did this happen? It's like so painful. But what I love about Hebrew is that the deeper meanings are in the Hebrew, right? So lama means why, but it also forms lama, same letters. Lama means for what purpose? What can I learn from this breakup? What can I learn about myself, about what were the mistakes I made, about who I was in that relationship? How can I work on myself to be a better person, to be a giver, to go into the next one and have a healthier relationship? And then that relationship is not a waste of time. I learned something from it. It built me rather than just being despairing and that the world's terrible. And I just want to give credit to Adina, that when I've known Adina for years back in Israel and everything. And we once had this very powerful discussion in Israel when I was a student and I was single, and Adina was running a trip, powerhouse woman. And she said to me a question, and it stayed with me for years, Adina, and I've used it so many times in your name.
Let me get my tissues. Hold on 1 second.
She said, Jackie, are you the kind of woman that the man of your dreams would want to marry? Are you the kind of woman, the type of woman, the kind of woman that the man of your dreams, who you're thinking you want to marry, would marry? And I want to put that out as a soul challenge for the week, because this was the most powerful way for me to reflect upon what do I need to work on in myself to really treat myself the way I would want to be treated by a man or by my partner. Like, that was such a powerful question. I want to thank you publicly for that, Adina, because it was like really impactful, and it made me also give myself a reality check, right? Because sometimes we also want things that are not so realistic. We're not on the level, and we need to work on ourselves, and we need to build ourselves as well. So it was just such a good reality check. And maybe this week that we can ask ourselves this question and start to work on one area, like focus on one thing that you know you need to develop more to be the kind of person that the man of your dreams or the person of your dreams would want to marry. And I think
go deeper than the 20 pounds. Let's just say that.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be, that's not too physical only, right?
No,
let's go deeper.
You should spend so much time looking for the right person. And if we spent equal amount of time being the right person, then that is how we attract the person to us.
Yes.
And I think it's so beautiful. The foundation of all real lasting relationships is the simplest commandment in the Torah, in my opinion. Simple to teach about, but very challenging to rise to the occasion and bring forth in our character, which is ve'ahavta l'reacha kamocha. You should love someone in the way in which you would love to be loved. I'll tell you something interesting. You might be watching this show and you're in a relationship. And I see a lot of comments coming in. Thank you so much for all of your comments. Erin, your comments are really beautiful. And Sandra, Devora, Jenny, thank you very much for commenting so that we know that you guys are appreciating listening. But all of you are very different. I know we have a 75-year-old woman who is tuning in, and I know we have a 19-year-old woman who's tuning in. So all of you are in different stages of your life. How do you work on V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha now? How do you work on becoming the right person? Choose the one person that's the most difficult person in your life. Could be your parent, it could be a sibling, the person that you keep butting heads with. If you could master becoming a better person in the context of that relationship, then you have truly grown closer to that soulmate. And that's why I love that call to action. That's why it's called a soulmate. If you really want to attract your soulmate, get better in touch with your soul potential, and you'll see it would be something that will fall on you. So I want to thank everybody for tuning in. This has been a really amazing, amazing night. Any last thoughts, Shoshana? Yafa, signing
Join
off.
the Facebook group. Join the Souled Facebook group and let us know how your Souled Challenge is doing. We all jump on there. We'd love to hear. Just go to Souled under Facebook, and we're all on there. 700 young, amazing women there, and we'd love to hear from you.
I think I just want to say, you first of all, you ladies are awesome. It's worth it to like get dressed up on a Sunday night just to see you. But, I can't stress enough how important it is what Jackie just brought to the forefront, because I was recently asked by Devorah Kegel, who is a very well-known dating coach, and I think she's made, I don't know, like she's up to like 149 or some like large number, like 149 client just got married from my dating coaching, and she recently asked me, what red flags does a person need to look for before, like when entering a relationship that goes awry or it ends up not exactly as intended? And upon a lot of thought, I told her it's not so much about what the red flags are of the other person that people need to look for. It's the being aware of the red flags within you that stops you from understanding your own awareness and your own clarity and your own sense of self. When a person is in touch with themselves and is at their best version of themselves that they can be, they'll see what they need to see in terms of the relationships that they're entering into. So ladies out there, college students, young professionals, those who are married, those who are looking to get married, those who are just looking for a boyfriend or something more than a 1, 2, 3 hookup culture night, get in touch with you. Figure out your best version of you. Date you and fall in love with you. And when you're able to do that, just like Yafa, Jackie, and Adina said, the sky's going to be the limit, because the soulmate that you are going to attract is going to be on the same level of your own magnificence that you've invested in you. So wishing you all a wonderful week of love building with yourself and hopefully with those closest to you.
And we'll see you in the Facebook group.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Not only will we continue this conversation, but you guys get to talk over there. We get to actually hear your opinions, your questions, your voices. So please head over, join us over there. And thank you all so much. This has been absolutely wonderful.
And Adina, you're such an awesome hostess. It was so much fun having you.
Thank you.
Today.
It was really nice.
Until next week, over and out. In the meantime, keep it real.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Your dog.